AI is kind of a scary thing. Now you might be wondering why that is. Well, what if I told you that statement you just heard was generated by AI? Don't believe me? Well prepared to have your mind boggled, because everything you've heard within this video has been an AI clone of my voice. Alright, maybe that didn't sound exactly like me, but I'd say that did a pretty damn good job for an AI. And that was with very minimal training applied to the model. So just imagine how good it hypothetically could be. Don't worry, I'm not playing any tricks this time, it's just me, good old Token. So the concepts of artificial intelligence have been around for the longest time now. But as of the past couple years, we've truly seen this technology unravel in an exponential way that our minds simply cannot comprehend. From chatbots like ChatGPT, Google Bard, Bing Chat, and Merlin, to text-to-image generators like Midjourney and DALL-E, all the way to more productivity-focused tools like Vesper, Jasper, Descript, and 11 Labs, which was actually what I used to clone my voice earlier. And while still in its early stages, this is perhaps the most powerful invention we've seen come to life in all of recorded human history. But as Uncle Ben says, with great power comes great responsibility. And with AI, a lack of responsibility could get real dark real quick. We've all seen those dystopian sci-fi movies, right? It ain't pretty. And I mean, looking at all these deep fakes that are floating around nowadays, it's already getting quite concerning. So Bitensor aims to not just ensure responsible development of artificial intelligence, but even exponentially speed up the process of how fast this technology is evolving at. And so you might be wondering, how in the world could AI develop any faster than the rate it's already at? Well, that's exactly what we're going to be finding out in this video. I'm Tokenicer, and since 2020, I've put in well over 5,000 hours of research in the blockchain and crypto space. I'm here to bring you only the highest quality deep research from the depths of the blockchain industry. While you're here, don't forget to check out Tokenicer.network for my free email newsletter of more content around the blockchain space, in addition to all my content platforms linked right in one spot, from my Twitter threads, Medium articles, Spotify podcasts, and so much more. And before we get back to it, I just gotta remind you guys real quick that I'm not a financial advisor, and therefore please don't take anything you hear or see from me as any form of financial or investment advice. But without any further delays, let's dive right down the rabbit hole. So just to give you guys a little sample size of how fast AI, well specifically ChatGPT in this case, is growing, here's a little bit of data. This is a list of the time it took some different websites and applications to hit 100 million users. So it took over 10 years for Spotify and Netflix, 5 years for Twitter, 4.5 years for Facebook, 4 years for Dropbox, 2.5 years for Instagram, and ChatGPT 2 months. Yes, you heard that right. 100 million users in 2 months. Which, if we assume every month is 31 days to be conservative, that's 1.612 million new users joining ChatGPT every day. It's like nothing we've ever seen before. It's not just chatbots, but we're seeing it in every part of our daily lives already. Every social media platform you're using today is ran by an AI algorithm to give you the best results and keep you continuously scrolling. There's countless workflow productivity tools like Zapier or Vesper to help with automating business-related tasks. And if you really wanted to, you could actually create a YouTube channel with an endless amount of content, all without ever hitting the record button even once. All of this and so much more powered by artificial intelligence. Now here's the thing with all these different AI systems. As great as they are, they're all closed off, and the secret sauce is kept by these big tech firms. And as we've seen time and time again, this can lead to a lot of potential issues from the amount of our data that they hold. But what if I told you there was a solution to this? Actually, let me rephrase that, because this is more than just a solution. But it has the potential to be the embodiment of AI itself, the singularity for artificial intelligence. And this is exactly what Bitensor stands for. Rather than leaving AI developments completely closed off to only these tech giants, what if instead we have an open distributed network where all AI training is shared across an open distributed ecosystem and governed? So now these machine learning models can all learn from one another, while the validators in the network ensure responsible AI development. So a large part of how Bitensor was created is thanks to the ethos of Bitcoin. Essentially, they took the concepts of a globally distributed network for money backed by computing power from miners around the world validating every transaction on a network. Bitensor figured they could apply this same approach, but switch out the concept of money for AI. And in return, you get a globally distributed network of transparent, immutable logs of AI training, which in return enables the ability for different models to learn from one another. In return, creating a network of networks for a technology that's already growing at the most exponential rate we've ever seen. Saying this accelerates the speed of how our AI will develop might even be a bit of an understatement if they're successful. Because if this ends up fully unraveling the way it's planned, what we'll see is the singularity point of artificial intelligence, where AI learns and innovates by itself without the needs of human intervention. After all, that's kind of what the Bitensor network is all about. AI learning from AI. But of course, this goes back to the potentially dystopian theory. And this is where the other part of blockchain technology within Bitensor comes in. The trust and immutability. By nature, consensus algorithms and mechanisms are what allows us to have trust within a distributed network. Just like on the Bitcoin network, you can trust that if I send you $100 worth of Bitcoin, the transaction will go through as long as I sent it to the correct address. Bitensor similarly leverages this trust to ensure transparency in everything going on and how these AI models are learning to ensure responsible and productive development. And so that's how the Bitensor network fundamentally works. Now let's look at how their ecosystem actually functions. So their aim is to create a market where intelligence, or AI training models in this case, are ranked and valued by other AI systems distributed around the network. And so every model will get a ranking and rating score by validators and miners in the network. And every ranking system will be specific towards a certain niche or basis, so that it accounts for relevancy and application to a variety of different use cases too. Because let's say someone wants to provide an AI dataset that's focused on training chatbot models to understand questions regarding fitness better. Well, that information would be essentially useless to image generators, writing tools, algorithms, deepfakes, and a long list of others. But as they say, one man's trash is another man's treasure. Which I think really goes to show how robust the vision for the Bitensor network really is. It's not specific towards any direct vertical of AI, but rather everything that the technology will encompass. And that's everything. You could think of the network almost like an aggregated marketplace where any machine engineer can come in and monetize their AI models, though in this case they're not really selling them. They're just making the dataset public. And this is quite different in contrast to the AI we're seeing today, where everything is fully closed off, and we don't actually know, nor can we see how these AI models are being trained or used. Instead, all we know is that it's really compute intensive and extremely expensive. It's estimated that it costs OpenAI about $700,000 per day just to keep ChatGPT open for the public to use, which comes out to about $255 million per year. Probably affordable by big tech firms, but not cheap by any means. Whereas with Bittensor's approach, instead of one corporate giant owning and paying for the expense to keep the AI ecosystem open, everyone is able to own a piece of the network while also having a globally distributed ecosystem of validators that are incentivized through their native token TAO to ensure responsible and trusted AI development. In theory, you could almost look at this like the incentive and public standard layer to AI that allows access to anybody to participate however they see fit. That can be using AI tools hosted on top of Bitensor, or maybe contributing your own AI datasets, or even building with the AI datasets within Bitensor itself for your own little Frankenstein AI project. If you are interested in trying out the Bitensor network for yourself and seeing what all this distributed, decentralized AI hype is all about, there's a few resources you can check out. The first of which is TAO.studios. This is like their version of Midjourney or DALL-E. In other words, it's a text-to-image generator. Now, through my time producing content, I've messed with quite a few of these text-to-image AI generators, and personally, I'd say Midjourney probably takes the cake. But I tried out TAO Studios the other day, and to say I was blown away would be a bit of an understatement. In fact, I even went and wrote a thread about it on X, which I'll be sure to link down in the descriptions below in case you guys want to read about it. Though the main reason for why I was so shocked wasn't just because of the quality of the artwork, and I'd argue in some cases rivals that of Midjourney's. But the crazy thing here is that this is literally just a little something someone had built on the side using the Bittensor network. TAO Studios is so far from its final form, it's crazy. I mean, just look at the images that it's generated. They're great, yes. But the thing is that not only is this just in testnet, but this is such a small part of the Bittensor network that there's actually only a handful of miners and validators responsible for this, since there's much bigger things they're focused on. So this is the quality of a side quest on Bittensor. That's quite unreal if you ask me. Oh, and did I forget to mention it's free? So if you do want to give it a try, definitely do so while it's still free. I'll be sure to link it down below in the description along with the Bitensor homepage. Then there's also both Chat with Hall and Reply Tensor, both of which are chat-based AIs built on top of Bitensor. I haven't really touched either of these, but in short, they're both AI-powered chat and reply bots, as you may have guessed from the name. Now, because this isn't like a traditional blockchain project or company that we normally talk about, they don't have any partnerships, but rather it's an open ecosystem where anybody ranging from a small retail developer to the head of machine learning at Google can input whatever value they have in AI data and earn proportional value to what they're providing. The road to adoption for Bittensor will be much less by force through large companies all beginning to utilize the technology. But my guess is that it will be much closer towards a game theory type of growth, because you have to remember that AI is already growing exponentially. So when you create an open network where it can learn from itself across all different utilities from the industry, it's the equivalent to attaching rocket fuel onto a Porsche 918. Now, I'm not saying this is a guarantee by any means, but based off the logic of game theory, these big AI firms have tons of resources to develop with tons of money to burn, yes. But will it be able to outpace AI around the world learning from itself is the question. That was meant to be rhetorical. I don't have an answer to that. Realistically, nobody does. It's the future. We're just gonna have to wait to see how it plays out. But one does have to think, if the speed of this AI network is growing so exponentially, and the fact that anyone participating in the network can add resources to provide, but also use resources from within the network to learn, wouldn't it make sense to focus the contributions of AI in general within this distributed ecosystem? Whether it be Apple, Facebook, Google, OpenAI, Microsoft, Neuralink, or any other big tech firm expanding into AI. All it takes is one domino to fall, and after that, the speed at which AI develops will be even further beyond anything our brains can understand. And we've already started seeing some fairly big names both in and out of the world of big tech take notice of Bittensor. Most recently, one of the co-founders of Bittensor, Jacob Robert-Sieves, who's previously worked in the AI department at Google for their machine intelligence system titled Brain. Well, Jacob was recently interviewed by Ash Bennington on Real Vision, which is a finance-focused media company founded by Raoul Pal, focused on all verticals of finance, from crypto, stocks, forex, commodities, and everything else in between. Along with this, Binance recently began taking notice of Bittensor, and they'd even wrote an article about the network. So it's pretty cool to see that the name and idea behind Bittensor are starting to get out there. There's also Yan LeCun, who's had a long background in computer sciences and engineering. He's been a professor at New York University for the past 20 years in computer sciences, mathematical sciences, neurosciences, electrical and computer engineering, and data sciences. Wow, that was a mouthful. But we're not quite done yet. Even with all this work in academia, Yan is working at the forefront of big tech as Facebook or Meta's vice president and chief AI scientist. That's quite the title to be holding. While this isn't quite as direct of a mention of Bittensor, we can see that Yan had actually chosen to quote retweet a video from fellow Bitensor community member Everett Scott on a video of Jacob Robert Steves explaining the purpose of the Bittensor vision. And Yan basically backed the point of the video up in his text talking about the essentiality of publicly open standards. So far from any strong direct evidence of Meta using Bittensor, but it's definitely eye-opening to see that the chief AI scientist for Meta is agreeing with the concept of what Bittensor is presenting. But since we've got this video pulled up, I'm actually going to play it real quick because I think what Jacob said in this part of his interview with Ash on Real Vision really summarizes the potential closed-loop dystopian future for AI, and pretty much how Bittensor is aiming to avoid that.
Imagine if the internet itself had been invented by a Silicon Valley company. What if it was Sam Altman Mach 2 that invented the internet, and they were going to Congress and telling them that, hey, well, we should probably have some regulations around this technology that we're calling the internet right now, because people are watching pornography and they're sending messages out there that we don't like, and so we're gonna put this on you guys, and it probably would have been regulated, and it probably would have been made so that only a small number of people could actually use the technology that we consider so important to our lives. We have a whole internet-based economy. In fact, our entire economy is now internet-based. And that wouldn't have happened unless the technology had been fundamentally decentralized from the very beginning, built for almost a separate purpose, not by Silicon Valley profit-seeking motives.
So I think Jacob brings up a really good point, that initially the internet wasn't built for pure profit-seeking motives, but rather finding innovation in general. Whereas with the modern AI we're seeing in our capitalistic society, this is exactly what's going on, where tech giants with absurd amounts of funding are the only ones able to compete at the pace of AI. Really though, I just played that video for you guys because I think Jacob, being a co-founder and one of the original minds behind Bittensor, could probably explain the concepts of their network a little better than I can. Maybe just a little. But to keep it real, I do suggest you guys check out that interview with Ash and Jacob, as it really explains the whole ethos and concepts behind why Bittensor was built to a much higher degree. Alright, so you might be thinking that one wasn't the strongest of connections, and I would agree with that. But I promise you're going to want to hear this next one. So this is Barry Silbert. If you've been in crypto for some time, you've probably heard of him. He's the founder of Digital Currency Group, which is one of the largest Web3 focused venture capital firms with over $50 billion in assets under management. Some of their most notable investments include Coinbase and Ripple in 2013, Kraken, Abra, and Circle in 2014, Etherscan in 2016, Hedera in 2018, Fireblocks in 2020, and as of 2021, you can add Bittensor to that list. But they didn't just invest in Bittensor. In fact, far more than that. So this is Matthew Beck. He's the Director of Investments for Digital Currency Group, and before that, his background involved various similar roles at Grayscale, for example, which is also owned by Digital Currency Group. But before he got involved with the whole Digital Currency Group conglomerate, he'd also spent some time at Bridgewater Associates. This is the asset management firm founded by world-famous investor and key opinion leader Ray Dalio. So Matthews had quite a background in scoping out potential innovation. Well, he was interviewed by Business Insider representing Digital Currency Group on a panel titled 53 Most Promising Crypto Startups of 2022, according to VCs. And well, guess what project Matthew decided to showcase for his part? That's right, none other than the network of networks for AI, Bittensor. Now beyond this, they've gone a step even further in supporting the ecosystem development through their subsidiary Foundry Digital. This arm of Digital Currency Group is focused on the advisory, financing, and consultancy of digital asset mining and staking for institutions. And while Foundry actually holds the largest Bitcoin miner pool, with them mining about 30% of all Bitcoin blocks. Diving a little further, we can even see that Foundry has already set up support to enable their clients to stake TAO right on their platform. And since we brought up TAO, which is the native token within the Bittensor ecosystem, let's talk about TAO a little more. The TAO token essentially works as bandwidth on the network, and much like Bitcoin follows the same halving cycles, with the first one taking place approximately in September 2025, and the last one supposedly in August 2069. The total supply, as you may have guessed, is also much like Bitcoin, with 21 million total TAO, though currently the circulating supply is sitting just around 5.3 million. As the network expands, I believe there will be infinitely more use cases for the token as the AI capabilities expand over time in their ecosystem, and the likely fact that TAO will be at the epicenter of all of that to enable access. But for now, the main utilities include paying for general fees to utilize the AI models in the network, and for staking to secure the network. Well, securing is actually kind of a funny term with the Bitensor network, because there's sort of a double meaning to this. On one end, the security is through incentivizing honest and good actors on the network through the TAO token. But the other is the access and ability of these AI services to be executed, with the way to do that being through utilizing TAO. And so there's actually a couple ways you can help with securing the Bitensor network without providing valuable AI models. Because realistically, I'd imagine most of us aren't machine engineers. Originally, you would have needed 1024 TAO to operate as a validator node. But since the recent network upgrade from Nakamoto to Finney back in March, all you need now is to be in the top 128 validators, which you could argue is less of a burden on your pockets, but it's going to make it a hell of a lot more competitive in the long run. Because now this is taking some of the competition factor of Bitcoin's proof of work mining, with computers around the world competing to solve the next block. Bitensor similarly has this competition within their ecosystem now, where potentially there's going to be countless validators or people wishing to be validators that are all competing and fighting for that number 128th spot, which unconsciously makes the network all that much stronger when so many computers in the world are all competing for a spot to secure the network. But I'm gonna keep it real. For 99% of us, being in the top 128 validators might even be tougher than just acquiring 1024 TAO. Because with the latter option, all you needed was capital, which is not an easy task per se, but it's definitely doable. With the former of being a top 128 validator on the network, you'll probably need some decent computer hardware for starters, but then you're gonna have to learn some AI programming, and not just learn AI programming, but you're probably gonna have to be pretty advanced and consistent with it. So instead of all this, you can actually just stake your TAO onto another validator and start securing and earning within the ecosystem. Like Foundry, for example, which, as we can see, is 10% of the network's compute. And as you can see below, there's quite a long list of others you can choose from. Though, if you're ever in doubt, the OpenTensor Foundation is probably your best choice, since that's the most raw form of supporting the ecosystem as it gets. The current rewards for TAO are 28.15% for being a validator and 23% for just staking. Not bad at all by any means. Now, one last interesting thing to note about the TAO token that I believe is worth mentioning is that within Singapore, they've actually gotten some regulatory clarity on the status of TAO as a digital asset. Because as we can see here, TAO does not constitute as e-money, nor does it fall under an investment scheme seen as a security in capital market products. Instead, it does constitute as a digital payment token. So a digital commodity or utility token of sorts. So along with a use case for distributed and decentralized AI access, they now also have the green light for regulatory compliance through regulatory neutrality in this case. And while there have been many other crypto assets that have begun going more with the Bitcoin route through fair launches without pre-mines, just like how Bittensor's done it, I truly believe that Bittensor and TAO is the first to do so this well. Because many other projects do this in an attempt to sort of compete with Bitcoin. But here we're not seeing competition, far from it if anything. This is a complete polar opposite direction. Rather, it's much closer towards an augmentation to fit a different use case. The potential for Bittensor is really beyond what we can even imagine. Because with AI being such a novel technology, we can barely comprehend what will come next from the industry, let alone the technology learning from itself. AI is perhaps the most disruptive innovation in our time, one that will open countless doors in the near future, and one that we will have to move forward with responsibly. Bitensor shouldn't be looked at as another AI project or company, but rather the vision to be the embodiment of Metcalfe's law intersecting with AI. The vision they have for this is bigger than crypto and blockchain, or even life itself for that matter. In both a figurative and literal stance, it has the potential to become artificial life. But of course, this all largely depends on the continued growth of the ecosystem overall, which the responsibility lies in each of our hands to ensure that AI development is not only optimized, but done in a secure manner. So where do you guys think the future of artificial intelligence and the exponential growth in technology that follows will take us? Do you think it'll lead to the dystopian sci-fi films we've witnessed? Or do you think Bitensor will fulfill its role in becoming the network of networks for AI to grow in an exponential yet responsible manner? Or maybe somewhere in the middle? You tell me. So as always, thank you all again for tuning in. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe, along with checking out Tokenicer.network. And most importantly, stay safe and keep learning. I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.